At Wind River Resort and Casino, we like to celebrate life's little moments. Oh, and the big ones too, because around here, when you're completely in the moment, that's when the magic happens. Come in and find your moment at Wind River Resort and Casino.
Good morning, everyone. I want to remind you that there is a bike drive here, the 21st annual Ted Blankenheims, and of course, it's been going on for many, many years, as you can see here. Plenty of sponsors where you can drop off those bikes through December 24th, so don't forget to do that. Make another a less fortunate child's Christmas a little bit brighter with a brand new bike. Take a look at Bernie Basin yesterday morning. This is courtesy of Brian, and Brian is one of our regular viewers, and he sends some great photos across the region here. And this is looking out at the Bernie Basin. So we are seeing some of those mountain valleys, seeing that fog in the morning, but a lot of that does burn off here as you do go into the morning and afternoon hours, especially in the mountain valleys. Not as much for the Sacramento Valley as we've seen over the last few days, although some areas have seen that clearing. The forecast gets a little tricky, at least the forecast highs, because this fog can be semi-unpredictable. All right, we share your photos if you want to do that, just like Brian did. You can share those from the free Weather NorCal app, from the iPhone, and from your Android. So looking at the visibility out there, it's showing 0, but basically about a quarter mile visibility, a little bit higher than that in some cases here, but you get the idea. We have low visibility in the valley this morning. We've got low visibility along the coast and even some of those mountain valleys as well. So we take a look at what it looks like right now at the Sundial Bridge in Redding. There you can see the fog that we are seeing out there this morning. We take you out to Red Bluff this morning. This is as of about 6:25 based on this image. This is still looking quite dense with that fog this morning. And looking out at Chico, doesn't look to be quite as bad, but we are looking at a live image here. But if you look down the pike there you can see some of the low clouds and some of the fog that we are seeing out there. So we look at our weather headlines. Essentially, we got more of the same over the next few days. That morning fog working its way on in. And hold on one second here. Let me just kind of get this up and running. There you go. All right, just want to make sure I can see what you all are saying, if there's anything going on here. All right, then of course, the reason for all of this is we got a dry and stagnant pattern through at least the first half of the weekend. But as you go above the fog, and that's in the higher foothills and the higher elevations, sunny and mild conditions. But next week, could we be looking at the potential for some rain? The answer is yes, but still, I'm not 100% confident on when it's going to start and how much we'll see, because we have some big discrepancies in the long-range forecast models, especially for next week. I mean, next week, it depends on which one you look at. One model, the European forecast model, pretty wet through a good portion of next week and some good rain. The GFS, the American forecast model, not so wet. We could be looking off and on chances for rain even with the GFS, but just not as much. So there you go. All right, let's take a look at your Krueger's quick cast for those of you that are in a hurry and just want a quick look at for today's forecast. So it gets tricky. Now look at the forecast at the Redding Airport, 36 degrees. What this tells me is that the fog is not as dense, at least at the airport this morning, and as a result, that's allowing the temperature to drop a little bit here. But you can see here where the fog is more dense, Red Bluff down to Chico, it's more like the low 40s right now. Now that doesn't mean there's no dense fog in the Redding area. It just depends on where you are. There are some spots in the Redding area that are dealing with some of that dense fog, but just kind of take note of that. So out the door this morning, I think pretty much across the board in the valley there will be fog. I think there's going to be some fog for some of the Trinity County valleys as well as the coast, Siskiyou, Modoc County, again, those low-lying areas. And the eastern mountains may not see as much of that, but there still could be some patchy fog there as well. So looking at the visibility again, as you can see here, down to about a quarter of a mile to even over a mile in some spots here for the valley, and pretty dense fog as you head out along the coast and some of those inland valleys as well. So looking at the forecast visibility, Futurecast, this is coming in from the HRRR forecast model. Now you look at Redding, it's showing 10-mile visibility. That's not necessarily the case, is it? But the latest forecast model is now kind of pushing some of that up northward. It wasn't showing any fog in Shasta County in the valley. Now it is, especially east of I-5. So again, I think there are some spots, and I've noticed even at my house here, the fog hasn't been as dense this morning, and as a result, making for a cooler start to the day. That could also have an impact on when the fog decides to clear out. You see, these types of forecasts, it is so easy to get a forecast bust on the forecast highs because the fog completely determines what the temperatures are going to be. All right, so let's take you through about midday. Much like yesterday, it was around early afternoon that we started to see some clearing for places around the Reading area, and then southward not so much. And that could be the case again here for today. You can see that fog even at 6 p.m. still pretty dense in some spots here for the valley of Tehama, Glenn, and Butte counties, but maybe not as much out towards, say, Shasta County around Reading. But by tonight, tomorrow morning, the fog looks to reemerge again, and then we probably may see some clearing again for Thursday afternoon. Rinse, repeat with that forecast and the fog. All right, so one of the reasons why we have this fog is that persistent ridge of high pressure. We'll go into more detail what that all means, but what that's also doing is diverting all the storms, the clouds, and the rain to our north, which is why the Pacific Northwest is seeing that heavier rainfall. But again, there are signs of change. Now, these 40% chances on Monday, Tuesday might be a little overly aggressive. But what this is showing is that as we go into next week, we may start to see some changes in the overall pattern. First and foremost, that will help to really break out the fog. But number two, it'll bring us potentially some needed rainfall. So here's what I got for your forecast highs. And as I mentioned, these highs in the valley will all 100% be dependent on when the fog clears out. Bottom line, that's it. So Reading, if you clear out sooner than expected, you could be looking at mid to upper 50s, maybe even some low 60s. Once again, if it clears out in the morning, yeah, low 60s. And if it's sunny all day, low 60s. But if it takes a while, if it's not until, say, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon that it clears out, then it may be closer to the upper 40s to low to mid 50s. Again, just depends on that fog. But where we're staying above that fog in most cases for the mountains, you're looking at temperatures upper 50s, low to even mid 60s. Ruth, that might be overdoing it at 70 degrees, but you get the idea. It's going to be warmer. Temperatures upper 50s to low 60s along the coast. All right, so let's take a look at tonight. Temperatures are going to drop down once again, low 40s. I actually had someone ask me last night, a couple of people asked me actually last night, because it had cleared out and was a clear start to your evening and overnight hours, people were concerned that we may see some frost in the valley. At this point, at 36 degrees, that's probably not going to happen. There may be some clear spots that it could be close. But otherwise, it won't last for very long should we see any of that frost. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. Temperatures in the 20s and 30s for the higher elevations and low to mid 40s along the coast. All right, so let's take a look at that 7-day outlook. I've got morning fog for Reading, Red Bluff. Some of that afternoon clearing is a possibility. Afternoon clearing is going to be a more difficult possibility for places like Chico. And then we start to see some signs of change going into next week. Now, notice no raindrops falling from the clouds, but I've included the word chance in there for Monday and Tuesday because that chance is there based on the long-range forecast. We're going to have to iron out those details as we get closer to next week. In the meantime, the coast, you're dry, minus some of the mist and that drizzle that you're seeing. Otherwise, you've got that morning fog for places like Trinity County. Now, what we've got here for Siskiyou, Moto County, Eastern Mountains, you're above that fog, so you're looking at mainly sunny skies, warmer temperatures into the valley as a result, and there's that chance for showers come Monday and Tuesday. Okay, that's your Krueger's Quickcast. Hope you have a great day if that's all you needed. If not, stick around for the deeper dive. We've got a lot to talk about. Of course, more at the fog. We're going to talk about that in more detail. We're also going to talk about that potential for rain and what that's looking like as well. Can't see much from Lake Oroville Cam there because it is dense fog. Some dense fog out towards Lake Oroville, North Forebay, but you can at least see some images there, like a tree, a lake, and even the dock off there in the distance. There's Main Street Chico on Highway 32. Someone making a left turn. I'm glad that they used their turn signal, stopping at the red light, but you can see a little bit of fog there. Highway 99, Neal Road, you've got some fog out there. Looks like it's a little bit more than that quarter-mile visibility, so I'd say about a half a mile to a mile there. Looks like we've got some pretty dense fog out at the Sundial Bridge Drive exit on Highway 44. Of course, that's going over a body of water. that bridge there. So that's also a bit of a moisture source as well, typically. All right, so let's take a look at Crescent City this morning. And there you can see some of the mist, some of the drizzle that we are seeing with those low clouds and that fog that we are seeing along the coast. And in fact, we take a look at the drizzle and mist that we are seeing just north of Trinidad in Elk Country. So we are starting with some of that low clouds, some of the dense fog out along the coast as well. All right, now we take a look at what we've got going on here out at Bald Hill West. You can't see anything there because we've got that dense fog typically looking down into Hoopa Valley. Above that fog, Soda Ridge, look at this beautiful sunrise. You can see the sun rising off in the distance. You can see, if you look off in the distance, you'll see in some of those mountain valleys there, some of the fog lingering. Now, once the sun comes up over that horizon, that'll help to dissipate that fog and or cause the fog to evaporate. But we're also starting to see a little bit of colors in those clouds out there as well. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at Fort Jones, and once again, as we go above that fog, but those mountain valleys lower, the colder air sinks into the valley. That helps to support and trap in that colder air, and we see that fog develop as well. All right, let's take a look at Lassen Park, and we kind of get this illusion that there's snow up in the mountains there because we're in the night vision with that camera, but it's no snow up on those mountains off in the distance there, and not much snow even out at the surface either. Well, today is Wednesday, and we got our Grange Co-op Spotlight. You know, we're coming pretty close here to Christmas, so you need a place to maybe look for some of those stocking stuffers. Looks like Grange Co-op has made it really easy for you to find stocking stuffers for many people that are on your list. Check it out. Hello everyone, I'm Mike Krueger from Weather NorCal, and this is another edition of Grange Co-op Spotlight. We've got Karen from Apparel here, but you're actually going to be telling us about some really cool things going on. Stocking stuffers here at Grange Co-op, right?
Yes, we sure do. We've got lots and lots of stocking stuffers for your horse enthusiast, your pet enthusiast, your do-it-yourselfer, DIYer. We've got you covered. I mean, you just got to come on down and check it out, and lots of clothing items too that would make great stocking stuffers.
And that's always a difficult thing, I think, for people. They like to just kind of shop around. So you've got things here that are behind us that are some stocking stuffers, but throughout the store there are different things that you have as well, right?
We actually have 5 end caps that are set up specifically for stocking stuffer ideas in our different departments. Yeah.
So you make it really easy for people.
We are trying, and we're also happy to help you shop.
And I just witnessed that here with the customer that came in. You were helping her find an ornament with a horse, and of course you found that, so that was great. So if you are looking for any stocking stuffers this year for Christmas for your loved ones, your friends, your family, whatever, come on over here to Grange Co-op. Like I say, they got these great things here and all throughout the store to kind of help you find what's perfect for anybody you love. Well, that's another edition of Grange Co-op Spotlight. I'm meteorologist Mike Krueger. Have a great day. Once again, I want to thank Grange Co-op for their support of course, in Reading. It's a new store. Fairly recently, they opened up here in the Reading area. And, here's one of the things I've noticed when I go out and shoot these segments. They are super nice over there. Not just to me. I've noticed that they are, if you've ever been to an Ace Hardware, when you go to Ace Hardware, they're like super helpful. They want to help you find what you're looking for. Kind of the same thing. I mean, they leave you alone a little bit more out at Grange Co-op, but if you are looking for help, they are always happy and willing to help you. And if they don't have it in their store, they are going to see if they can maybe get it ordered for you. They've also got the store up in Southern Oregon that they can, tap into resources there as well. So they are very, very helpful out there at Grange Co-op. So be sure to check it out if you haven't had a chance. There's a little something there for everyone. All right, speaking of our sponsors, our sponsor of Coffee with Krueger and has been since day one is Wind River Resort and Casino. At Wind River Resort and Casino, enjoy friendly service, a wide variety of specials and promotions, plus all of your favorite slots and table games. All right, so we take a look at our weather headlines, and we saw this a little bit earlier, but we've got that morning valley fog with areas of clearing. Again, this is that situation where each day is going to be different. And I think the north end of the valley, in particular around the Reading area, typically we'll see the best chance to see some clearing through the morning or afternoon. Just depends on how dense the fog starts out in the morning. We got a dry and stagnant pattern through the weekend. That's going to continue to support that fog for the next several mornings and afternoons for some of you. Sunny and mild, though, in the mountains as you get above that fog, but rain chances by early next week. We're going to get into all of this in the deeper dive forecast, but first, a word from our sponsor, Shasta Hearing Aids.
Frank, come help with the dishes.
What?
The dishes!
I heard it the first time. I just got back from Shasta Hearing Aids, but she doesn't know it yet. What?
Forget it.
All right, thanks again to the Shasta Hearing Aids for their support as well. They are the sponsor of the Deeper Dive forecast, by the way. Taking a look at the temperatures out there right now. I want you to notice 36 degrees out in Redding, temperatures generally upper 30s, low 40s elsewhere. What this tells me is that at least out at the Redding airport, the fog is not as dense this morning there. That's allowing that colder or the warmer air that we saw through the day to escape. It's basically allowing us to those temperatures to drop a bit. So there were some people yesterday on Facebook that had asked me if I think it's going to frost overnight, because we started off with those clear skies, and really it's not until a few hours ago that that fog really began to get a little bit more dense in some areas around the Redding area, and they were concerned about frost. And for good reason. I mean, we're getting close to seeing some temperatures around where we can start to see some frost, but not quite. I think in most cases you're going to be just fine. And even if it does, it'll be for a brief period of time, because once the sun comes out, that should help to warm things up, especially for areas that aren't seeing much in the way of that fog or very dense fog. Much colder to the north and east. We're sitting at 23 for Redding, or excuse me, Alturas, 30 degrees for Susanville, 27 degrees in Chester. But along the coast, of course, you got the fog there and mist and drizzle with temperatures 40s, low 50s. Now the visibility is rather low as we go up and down the valley here, some low visibility, although we should see some shaded yellows and oranges in there as well, but you get the idea. Even some of that dense fog for some of those mountain valleys as well. Don't like what I'm seeing here. We are seeing the fog as we go north into the Redding area. So I think the HRRR forecast model, not 100% on track with that, but still looking pretty good as you head to the south, as we are seeing that fog. At least good when we're talking forecast model data. Not so great because of the fog, right? But we still have that fog along the coast. We have the fog in many of those mountain valleys as well. So by midday, still very foggy, drizzly, and misty along the coast. Still foggy for many of you in the valley, but we may start to see some clearing for places like Redding, and then chances start to diminish for that clearing as we head southward. And there's a very good chance we may see that fog through the day for Tehama, Glenn, and Butte counties in the valley, but maybe not so much for the Redding area. But it does look like as we go into the overnight hours, that fog is going to reemerge and work its way back northward into the Redding area here by tonight, and that'll be the case going into tomorrow morning as well. Some of the key factors to that fog is the wind. If we can get the winds to pick up, that can help to blow the fog out and scour it out. But as long as we keep those winds fairly calm, we are going to continue to see that fog. Now, there are signs that I am seeing here as we go into Thursday morning. You start getting into that 5, 6, 7 mile an hour range, you could see that fog disperse a little bit here. So we could, I mean, if this holds true, right? The winds, especially when we're something as fragile as fog, right? Because again, all it takes is that little bit of a shift in the winds and suddenly the fog is gone. But if this doesn't come to fruition, then that fog will still be the case here for Thursday morning in central Tehama County. Quite honestly, I think that'll most likely be the case, that we'll see that fog. And then Friday morning, once again, you're seeing those calm winds, and the calm winds will continue through Friday afternoon. Just wanted to show you that, because if we see signs of 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, that's enough to scour out that fog. In the meantime, the reason why we're seeing all this is this resilient ridge of high pressure, which has been over the eastern Pacific this week and even this past weekend. What that's doing is just diverting all of that energy up to the north. We saw some pretty heavy rainfall even in Oregon, but as this ridge builds even stronger, it's pushing that energy even farther to the north. So places like Washington, southern Canada are seeing the bulk of that rain and snow right now. But by the way, when I say snow, you have to go up pretty high in elevation, because this is a subtropical air mass that's going right into the Pacific Northwest, giving them that heavy rainfall. So again, you've got that atmospheric river, because that's essentially what it is. And you can see the areas in red is where we do expect to see the heaviest amount of rainfall And that could lead to the potential for some mudslides and debris flows. But looks like we do have a chance for some pretty heavy rainfall, even down to the south, say around Portland, northeastward, the potential for some flooding there as well. But you see where we are? I mean, even down in southern Oregon, you head out to Bend and Medford, dry there as well, kind of in that area here. But we do, again, have that resilient ridge of high pressure, which is right here. There's where all the rain is. There's where all the high elevation snow is. We take into Thursday. There's that ridge of high pressure still in place. We take into Friday. We still have that dominant ridge of high pressure. But what we see over here is expected to eventually start to move in by probably sometime toward the end of this upcoming weekend and early next week. Now, one thing I want to show you this is coming in from the Climate Prediction Center. They are actually being quite bullish in the forecast center there in bringing that potential for wetter than normal conditions for central and northern California, but staying dry in Southern California. This is one of those things where this just kind of gives you a general idea of what the trend is looking like, not necessarily a representation of how much rain we are going to see, but it is showing that potential. And that is that light at the end of the tunnel for those of you that want to see more rain. And I think that's going to be a majority of you. Above normal temperatures, if you get above the fog, yes, but if you're in the fog, no. So this is not a representation of the fog that we're seeing for the entire valley here. Temperatures there, for the most part, are going to stay below normal because we just can't get that heating of the day from the sun. But if you're above that fog, yes. I mean, one thing to kind of keep note is when we look at the forecast models, they're showing temperatures well into the 60s for Redding, even around 70. But that's not taking into account the fog. Sometimes those long-range forecast models have a difficult time with that fog. That's where we as meteorologists come in to kind of help interpret all of that here for you as well. And that's why I'm showing those cooler temperatures. Now, again, you'll notice here I've got a high for 49 degrees in Redding today. That may be warmer if the fog decides to burn off sooner. So you're going to see from different weather sources, because I know that there are people out there that like to check different weather sources, you're going to see a wide range of highs is what you're going to see. You're going to see anywhere from the upper 40s in Redding to mid 60s in Redding. For scenarios that see mid 60s, that's if the fog burns off this morning. If it takes longer, and think about it, we saw the fog burn off around the Redding area probably sometime in the early afternoon hours, but it still stayed in the upper 40s for those daytime highs. So that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards the upper 40s. However, as I mentioned, if that fog burns off a little bit sooner, then there's a chance to get at least in the mid 50s. We'll see. Taking a look at those lake levels, you can see here actually Lake Oroville has dropped down below 100% over the last few days to about 98% of the historical average. But overall, the lakes are still healthy, at least for this time of the year. It'd just be nice to start getting some rain, some snow in the mountains that can eventually fill those lakes. There is a beach hazard statement that's been issued by the National Weather Service, but not until tomorrow. We do have the risk for sneaker waves. What are those, you ask? Well, those are basically you're along the beach, you're hanging out, you're in the water, and suddenly a large rush of water comes on in, and it can sweep you under your feet. It can pull you into the water. If you're rock hopping on those sharp rocks, that can make you fall over onto those sharp rocks. It can be a very dangerous situation. So, beach hazard statement for your Thursday. Be aware of that here for tomorrow. Taking a look at the wave heights, we go into your Wednesday. Not much change going into your Thursday either. Generally about 4, 5 to 6 feet there. Taking a look at your marine forecast. Winds from the north at about 5 to 10 knots. Your waves from the northwest at 8 feet at about 13 seconds. No advisories, no small craft advisories. All right, take a look at your North Coast neighborhood forecast. Actually, your neighborhood forecast sponsored in part by Dignity Health. We're going to start with Trinity County, though. All right, so temperatures in the upper 60s along the Highway 299 corridor. I've got morning fog all the way through Friday. That may even persist into Saturday as well. And then what you're going to notice when you look at the 7-day forecast across the region is that we do have the word chance in there for Monday, Tuesday. Now, the reason I'm kind of broad brushing it with that is the fact that the long-range forecast models are not very consistent. That is, some models are much more aggressive with the rainfall, that being the European forecast model, but the GFS not nearly as aggressive with the amount of rainfall. And in fact, the European forecast model has some pretty good storm systems that'll be pushing through, giving us some decent rain off and on through next week, whereas the GFS, not nearly as much rainfall. So we take a look at your Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast for Wednesday today. Temperatures in the mid-60s along Highway 96. Along I-5, you're looking at temperatures in the upper 50s. For Scott Valley, once that fog clears out, you are seeing that dense fog this morning, but once it clears out, looking at temperatures in the low 60s for those daytime highs. So you can see the difference. Once you get above that fog, these temperatures are certainly a lot warmer in the higher elevations. That includes Modoc County, upper 50s, low 60s for your daytime highs. There will be some patchy fog for some of those low-lying areas, some of those valleys in the mountains here, even for the eastern mountains, even though I don't have that morning fog in the forecast there you can see that chance for showers by Monday and Tuesday. Looking out at Lake Elsinore and Lassen Park, you've got those temperatures low to mid 50s, and looks like temperatures 50s for the Lassen Volcanic National Park. Take you out to Paradise, upper 50s there. You should be above the fog through a majority of the day with that chance for showers by Monday and Tuesday. Look at these highs. Now, these are highs that, you think, oh, you're in the mountains. No, these are highs for the valley. Socked in with that fog, most likely through the day. And in fact, I've got you with those low clouds here through Friday for Oroville and also for Chico, keeping those temperatures in the mid to upper 40s, even into Saturday. But eventually by Monday, we may start to see some of those changes moving on in. We take a look at your valley neighborhood forecast to the north. Temperatures there, again, this is one of those things where this can be a complete bust when I'm talking about temperatures, because again, I am seeing signs, especially in Redding, that the fog not quite as dense in some areas around the Redding area as it was yesterday morning at this time. So with less dense fog, it's going to be easier for the sun to penetrate that fog and burn it off a bit. So if that's the case, it could burn off sooner, and as a result, that would mean more sunshine throughout the day, and that would bring that temperature up higher than, say, 48 degrees for Red Bluff, or even Redding for that matter, and maybe some mid-50s, maybe some low 60s. We'll see, but for now, we'll keep it in the upper 40s with that fog. We keep that chance for fog, especially in the overnight and early morning hours for Redding Thursday and Friday, and then by Saturday, I'm kind of breaking that trend, but the trend may still linger on into Saturday before we start to see maybe the potential for some changes. Bottom line, even if we don't see the rain for Monday, Tuesday, what I am seeing is that we're going to get that ridge of high pressure out of here. That ridge is the reason why we're seeing all that fog, folks. So once we get that ridge out of here and get some disturbances through here, that can help to scour out the fog. It doesn't have to be a very strong disturbance, just a disturbance any way you look at it, and that can get those winds pumping up a little bit here and get that fog out of here. But the rain, I wish I had better news for you. I wish I could stay with confidence that we've got some really good rain heading our way, but I just don't see that right now because, again, the European forecast model, which for the record tends to be a little bit more accurate than that of the GFS. The European is getting much more aggressive with the amount of rainfall. But I didn't really show you either one of the models because I feel as though I'm giving you a disservice. Because I don't want you to get too excited about the rain. I don't want you to get unexcited about the rain because it may not be enough. But bottom line, we are seeing changes for next week. And that is going to mean the fog should be moving out bare bones, right? That's at least the best, as we kind of go into next week. But if we can get some rain out of this as well, that would be fantastic. And hopefully we start seeing those models begin to align a little bit better here. Something I'll be watching here very closely as we take you into the next several days. I love this. This is something I actually noticed a little bit earlier. This is coming in from Lisa Stevens. She's saying, "Sing it all, peeps. Ooh, we're halfway there. Oh, we're living on a prayer." Of course, I would say that that is most likely a reference to Bon Jovi, "Living on a Prayer." What is that, a classic 80s hit? Gotta love it, Lisa. Gotta love it. That's awesome. All right, take a look at this. This is coming in from Curtis Brown saying, "Good morning, Mike." It's kind of interesting. He's actually saying that yesterday it did clear out for about 4 hours. Then it rolled back in later on. So it fogged in this morning. So yeah, this has been a really unusual pattern that's kind of kicked itself on in here. Got a fairly new name here. I haven't seen this name very often. Don Venturi saying good morning. We have rain in Crescent City this morning. And of course, that's the very dense fog that you're seeing, most likely in the form of some drizzle at the very least. We've got Jackie Dixon from Trinidad this morning saying it was very drippy last night. This is what it looks like right now in Trinidad. You can see very dense fog out there this morning, leading to some low visibility. And you can see here, if you look closely, you might see some of that drizzle kind of going by the camera lens there as well. So thank you, Jackie, for that report. I certainly appreciate that. Robin Epperson Lee saying 52 degrees in Forbes-town and 62 degrees at Pike County Fire Lookout at 6:30 this morning. So yeah, I mean, definitely kind of interesting seeing some of your reports out here. In McKinleyville, beautifully clear morning in McKinleyville. Interesting. So it looks like not everyone along the coast is seeing that dense fog. Very interesting. Thank you, Rowdy, for that report. And we've got Bill Carlton saying, good morning, everyone, and have a great day. Certainly appreciate all of you checking in this morning. That's what it's looking like right now. Let's take you back to the camera here. This is looking out at Elk Country north of Trinidad. By the way, this camera is a camera I installed before I even launched Weather NorCal in anticipation of launching Weather NorCal. The owner of this resort knew who I was a fan, and wanted to support Weather NorCal and allowed me to put this camera up on their property. And this, I put two other cameras up, one in Crescent City and another one in the Redding area. Both of them just were having problems. They weren't working great. This camera, knock on wood, knock on wood, has been working flawlessly. It's on a Wi-Fi signal, not the strongest of signals, but strong enough that 90% of the time it has been there for me and been there for you to take a look at. So I'm very excited about that. That all being said, and Kenny Elwood, if you are listening, Kenny Elwood, I would like to talk to you about, I was talking when I was at the conference, I was talking to some folks that have cameras, and we can get started with the camera network. And Kenny, I'd love to talk to you about that and see what we can do to get some of those cameras up here, because I would love to see a better camera network here for Weather NorCal. I think we've got some great cameras here in Northern California in general, but of course with the alert cameras, you've got the Caltrans cameras, but there are still some areas that I think I would like to see some cameras in, and some of the mountain communities in particular that I think deserve to have cameras, and that would allow us to see where the snow is, the snow elevations. And these cameras, by the way, they've got something that's kind of in the works, and we could be the guinea pigs for this, and that is a snow sensor. It will sense how deep the snow would be. How cool would that be if we could have some of those cameras up here with those sensors and cameras in the works? So Kenny Elwood, let's talk. Let's see if we can get some of these cameras up here within the next 6 months or so. I would love to see that happen. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the other cameras around the region here. Let's take a look. Ooh, this is beautiful. Looking out at Soda Ridge this morning. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, thank you all so much for watching this morning. We're going to leave you with some of these cameras. Until then, have yourselves a great day. Stay warm out there, especially if you're stuck in the fog all day. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow morning, folks.
Thank you.